Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. We are live right now on twitch.tv/I_am_Germ. We're here with the chat. They have helped me come up with this list that we're going to be going through today of how we're going to rebuild Excel for 2023. Obviously, Excel just recently got swept by Fnatic. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen yet, yes, Fnatic is moving on. Excel is going home. They are in off-season mode now. They're looking ahead towards 2023. We're going to be going through their off-season and hopefully trying to make them a better team. Not just a team that's barely making playoffs and going home, but hopefully a team that's going to Worlds, maybe competing for some LEC titles, something like that. But I would love it if you guys did join us over on the Twitch stream. We're trying to grow it. We're streaming, a couple times a week. It's been a ton of fun. I think once we get into off-season mode, it's going to be a lot of fun as well. Somebody said reverse swept you meant. Yeah, that's what I meant. Excel got reverse swept. They didn't reverse sweep anybody. But like I said, we're rebuilding them. So starting out by taking a look at the LEC roster. This is what is going on with Excel right now. They have Finn signed until 2023. They have their bot lane, Patrick and Mickey, signed until 2023. But Marcoon and Nukeduck, they are now free agents. Yes, their contracts are actually until like November of 2022 or something like that. So they're not really free agents yet, but the 2022 season is over. Their contracts are pretty much expiring. They're going to be testing the market. Maybe they're about to re-sign to Excel, but maybe they're about to start talking to some other teams too. Excel is going to have a decision to make, and Marcoon and Nukeduck are going to have some decisions to make, especially Marcoon coming off a LEC All-Pro third team selection. I think he was the only member of Excel to make one of the top 3 All-Pro teams. So, hey, he's seen as one of the best junglers in the LEC right now. Yes, he doesn't get to go to Worlds and prove just how good he is or anything like that, and maybe he didn't end the season the most amazing in the world either, but this is a guy who hasn't made a ton of money yet, and he's probably going to have a decent chunk of money thrown at him this offseason. Maybe it'll be by Excel, maybe it'll be by somebody else. But this, just by taking a look at who their players and stuff are and how these years line up, it also makes next season a very, very important one for Excel because they don't have anyone signed past 2023. Next year, Patrick, Mickey, and Finn, they're going to be free agents too. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts and a lot going on with this roster. So even if you decide to bring everybody back, you got to get something done next year. You got to prove it to these players that you're worth sticking around, or you need to figure out what your future plans are too. So not only do you need to try to be good next year, you got to figure out the future. You have their academy roster where it looks like everybody is going to be a free agent. I'm not sure exactly who plays on their academy team and who doesn't, but these are the players that have under contract: Kryze, Dan, Razku, Venzer, FGG, and Tofu. They had Eminus as well, who was seen as one of the top ERL mid laners and really top ERL players in general, but there was the whole controversy with him getting kicked off the team and everything, so obviously he is not on here. But overall, not a ton of the talent in the academy, not a ton of guys that I'm looking to bump up or anything like that. But they're also going to be all free agents, so Excel's going to have to pick who they're re-signing, who they're going out and getting. But for this team, I'm not super worried about the ERL team. It's not like they have any clear guys that I'm looking to plug and play into the LEC or anything like that. But I just wanted to show you what they have. Also, as far as the coaches, they have Young Buck signed until 2024, and Nelson signed until 2023. And then I came up with a couple of goals for this team because I think going into an offseason, you need to have goals. You need to decide what the heck is going on. You need to have some kind of clear vision, clear trajectory for what you're even going for. So I have my number one goal as you need to keep making playoffs. Obviously, the meme with Excel is that they never make the playoffs. They always come up just short, whatever. They've now made the playoffs 2 splits in a row. Yes, they were happy. Yes, they celebrated. Hey, we made the playoffs for the first time, whatever. Now they've gotten over that hump. And now to keep progressing, you can't regress. You can't miss the playoffs now. You can't take a step backwards. You need to make the playoffs and build off of it. You need to actually do something with it, which means the bare minimum has to be making the playoffs again. So whatever roster we form, I think it needs to be a roster that's going to be able to, more often than not, or a lot of the time, make the playoffs in 2023, which they almost missed the playoffs both splits this time around as well. So it's not like these 5 players are locked to make the playoffs or anything like that, even if you just decided to run it back. I also think this team needs to decide what they want to be. Right now, Excel could go a couple of different directions. They are a 5th to 7th place team in the LEC right now, and they need to decide, are we going to be a decent spending team that tries to stay in the middle of the pack? Maybe every once in a while we sneak into Worlds as the 3 or 4 seed or whatever. Do we want to be a decent spending team that tries to win a title and tries to consistently go to Worlds? Or do we want to be a lower budget, non-spending team that's going to try and develop ERL players? Probably never go to Worlds. Maybe we'll make the playoffs a couple of times. Maybe we'll just, our slot will go up in value or whatever. You really have 3 ways to go, and Excel needs to decide what the heck's going on because they spent this money on Mickey. He wasn't cheap. He isn't cheap, and he had a buyout. They have some decent players, but they don't have a super expensive roster. Like, yeah, they spent some money on Mickey, but like overall, this roster was a lot of like pretty good budget players, like the upper tier of the budget players. But now you need to decide, are you going to go big budget, medium budget, small budget, whatever? And that's going to, kind of define your offseason too. So we can maybe run through all those different options. And I think your final and ultimate goal needs to be, hey, we got to try to make it to Worlds. Like, no matter what roster we're coming up with, there has to be at least some kind of outside shot of it qualifying for Worlds if everything goes right. Obviously, that gets a lot harder if you decide to go on the lower end of the budget, which maybe Excel needs to do. But we can still live in the pretend world where maybe they go, expensive on their budget as well. Also, we have a list of the free agents and stuff. Some different free agents in the LEC: Kabe, Chachi, Xerxa, Nukeduck, Kryze, Marcoon, Odo, Gen X, Jezu, Crowny, Bean, Schlatan, VTO, Neon. There's definitely more, but those are some of the more interesting ones. And then we have a list of some other players that I think that could be interesting for the team. Reckless, probably not as interesting for this team, but I always think it's interesting to throw Reckless out there. Obviously, Reckless and Mickey played together on G2. Didn't really go that well. Doesn't really seem like Reckless and Mickey got along all that well or didn't really want to play together. So I don't really see that happening again. And Excel already has Patrick anyway. But yeah, so getting into some of the possible rosters, you got to decide, are you going to bring back Marcoon and are you going to bring back Nukeduck? But the other half of that conversation is, does Nukeduck want to come back? Does Marcoon want to come back? And what other offers are those players going to get? And what offers are Excel going to be competing with? Now, of those 2 players, I think Nukeduck is way more likely to want to come back. And I think he is way more likely to come back because I don't think the market is going to be as strong for Nukeduck. And I can't really see Nukeduck wanting to leave. But if you're Marcoon, you could potentially want to leave. You could maybe look at like cashing out in NA. You could maybe look at trying to make a run to one of these top teams. And I know somebody said like, hey, none of the top teams need junglers right now. You have G2, you have Rogue, you have Fnatic, you have, Mad Lions that all have good junglers. But you got to remember the offseason's always crazy. The offseason's always wild. You would have never thought that Rogue was going to need a jungler or an AD carry last year when they had Inspired and Hansama, but then all of a sudden they did. You would have never thought that Mad Lions was going to need a mid laner when they had Humanoid, but then all of a sudden they did. So these things change fast. It is possible that Marcoon could test free agency and maybe go somewhere else. Again, it's not like Excel is the best team in the world or anything. They're like a 5th, 6th, or 7th place team. So I don't know. I don't know. And then, mid lane, it's hard to get. Nukeduck is solid. He's good, but he's not great. But those great mid laners don't grow on trees, and it's hard to get your hands on them. So let's just say the world where they keep Nukeduck and Marcoon decides to leave. Let's say Marcoon decides to go to North America. Let's say Marcoon goes to freaking TSM. Spica leaves. Spica's on Team Liquid or whatever. Spica's on CLG. I don't even know. And Marcoon decides to go get a bag in North America. Who are our jungle options? There's not a lot of amazing ones. Again, as far as free agents, you have Xerxa, who I don't see coming to Excel. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me. You have Schlatan, who I don't really think was that great either. I don't think he's an amazing option. The one guy out there who makes a ton of sense to me as the next Excel jungler, if it's not going to be Marcoon, it has to be Selfmade. It has to be Selfmade. This is a guy who is going to be available. I don't know where he's going to end up. I don't know if he's just going to stream, if he's just going to be a content creator, or if he's going to be in the LEC, but I think he's good enough to be in the LEC. I think he should be in the LEC. I think Selfmade is a top 10 jungler, and I think he's much higher than 10. And again, Vitality, they benched Selfmade, and they have Bo coming in. So maybe they're just going to release him. Maybe they're going to try and sell him off for some kind of small buyout. I don't know. I can't imagine they're going to be able to have much leverage in negotiations or anything, but Selfmade coming to Excel. Is Selfmade for sure an upgrade over Marcoon? No, absolutely not. I think this makes way more sense if Marcoon decides to leave, not if Excel just decided to kick Marcoon for Selfmade. But it's very possible, hypothetically, say Marcoon is going to leave. I think Selfmade coming into this team could make a lot of sense. So even just these 5, like say you just ran back this 5, I think this would be interesting. I think this would be another team that's probably going to make the playoffs. If the LEC gets 4 seeds again, could this team go to Worlds? Yeah, maybe. But overall, I don't really think this team's like better or worse than the 2022 team. I think this team's still flipping it a lot of the times, But now let's also say the team decides to make some other changes. Could they change top laners? I know a lot of people are like, hey, Finn was pretty good. Finn was decent. He was solid, but like, could we do better than Finn? What do different top lane options look like for Excel? And you do have Odoamne, who's about to be a free agent. Now, Odoamne is not going to be cheap, and it's probably going to be tough to get him away from Koi, but maybe Koi decides to go a different direction. I don't know. There are maybe some other ways that Koi could go, or maybe Odo wants to leave. Maybe Odo doesn't want to be a part of Koi, or he doesn't agree with the vision, or Koi doesn't want to spend the money to re-sign him or whatever. There is some opportunity that Odoamne leaves. Could he end up going to a team like Excel? Maybe. Maybe he's out of Excel's budget. Maybe he wouldn't want to come to Excel. Maybe Excel's not good enough for him. But it could be possible. You know, you could be looking at an Excel team like this. I do think that if they go out and get Odoamne, they would then have to upgrade Nukeduck. I don't think it makes much sense to go out and get a couple of guys and not upgrade the mid lane as well. So I think you could even run a team like Odoamne, Marcoon, Nukeduck, and then any one of the mid laners that's potentially going to be available. Now, who are the mid laners that are going to be available? The big name that everyone is throwing around for Excel is Vito. Vito is going to be a free agent. He's going to be leaving Misfits because they're not even going to be a team anymore. He's probably not going to play for Heretics. He's probably going somewhere else. And there's going to be a lot of teams in the running. I'm sure, there's going to be some teams that want him and consider him very, very much. But a lot of people have been saying Excel might make the most sense. And you could end up with some team like Odoamne, Marcoon, Vito, Patrick, and Mickey. Now, can Excel even afford this team? Would all these players come together? Would these players even work if they all came together? I don't necessarily know, but I think on paper, this is a way better, clearly this is a way better team than the 2022 team, but it is expensive. And how good would this team be? I'm not sure. You have a top 3 top laner, a top 3 potential jungler. You know, he was on the third all team. You have a top 3 mid laner in Vito. You have Patrick and Mickey, who could be a pretty damn good bot lane. But yeah, there's not really that many great top laners in EU. So if you're not looking at Finn, you're maybe looking at Odo. Another option that does come to my mind as well too, Team Liquid. They are going to be playing up against CLG and then Evil Geniuses. They need to win both those series to qualify for Worlds. What if TL doesn't qualify for Worlds? It's very, very possible that Hansama, Bwipo, could be leaving. Maybe they come back to Europe. Maybe TL kicks them. I don't know. Is there some world where maybe Bwipo becomes a top laner for Excel? I don't know. I think it's maybe possible. Maybe it's a little too crazy. Maybe Bwipo's more likely to go back to Fnatic. Maybe Bwipo's more likely to go to Koi or, one of these new big teams. I don't know, but you could also maybe look at some team like this as well. I think it all of a sudden becomes pretty possible. You also have the option of swapping in Selfmade here too. Outside of Selfmade and Marcoon, I don't really see a ton of jungle options for them, unfortunately. Another top laner that I do think makes a ton of sense is potentially Summit as well. Now, Summit is about to be a free agent. He's on FPX right now. FPX just got knocked out of the playoffs. And Summit, he was the LCS MVP. He played bad down the stretch. He played horrible in the playoffs, but then he went to the LPL and he did pretty good. I think Summit has sufficiently built his name back up. Obviously, all the EU teams have a ton of import slots and stuff available. Summit's not going to be cheap, I don't think. So again, maybe another guy that Excel can't afford, but he's a guy that's going to be available and he's going to have to go somewhere. Could it be to Excel? I don't know. I think it would be interesting. I do think that this would be a fun one. So maybe Summit becomes an option as well. You have Marcoon, Selfmade, you have all the different top lane options. And then I think in the mid lane, you can even get a little spicier as well. Yes, VTO is going to be a free agent. Yes, VTO is going to be the guy that's probably going to be the most easily available. But there's a couple other options as well. What if Perkz ends up going to Fnatic, which I've talked about before, and Humanoid becomes available? There's some world where maybe VTO could go to Team Vitality. Vitality's a team that throws around a lot of money. I'm sure VTO wants to, take full advantage of his MVP this year and try and secure a bag. What if Humanoid ends up on Excel? What if Excel ends up as the best opportunity for a guy like Humanoid? Is this possible? Could a roster like this, be formed? Could we get a Summit, Marcoon, Humanoid, Patrick, Mickey? Even throw in Finn here as well. I don't know. Finn, Odo, Bwipo, whoever you want. I think they're all pretty interchangeable and all kind of the same quality. I think it could be possible. And then another name that I think this is for sure a long shot. I don't really think that this is super likely to happen or anything like that. But there is a possibility of a guy like Larson as well. With this whole mid lane carousel going on, a VTO, Humanoid, Perkz, maybe they'll end up swapping teams. Especially if Rogue goes and doesn't perform at Worlds again, with Koi coming coming in. Maybe they want to go a different direction in the mid lane. Maybe they want to try and make some changes. Maybe there ends up in some crazy alternate reality where we end up with Excel Larson. I do think that's kind of a reach, but I do want to at least keep that on the radar. A couple of other names that people have thrown out as well is Nemesis or Jizuke as possible options to replace Nukeduck as well. Now, I think the question becomes like, hey, would, especially with, them taking breaks and maybe not being in the best form of their careers and stuff right now, are Nemesis or Jizuke an upgrade over Nukeduck at this point? I don't know. I don't know for sure. I do think it's a little bit hard to say, but I think those two guys would be kind of outside interesting shots to be the mid lane as well. Then you also have the possibility of, like I said, Excel needs to decide what they're going to be. Are they going to be a big spending team, a middle spending team, or a cheaper spending team? You have all the ERL options in the mid lane. I think if you were going to go cheap, you wouldn't go ERL in the top lane. I think you would just keep Finn. I think you would try and re-sign Marcoon. If you can't get Marcoon, I think it gets pretty rough. You can maybe go like Zlatan. You can maybe go like Xerxes. And then obviously in this situation, you would be going with Nukeduck in the mid lane. Like say you have to go cheap. You could go Nukeduck in the mid lane, but then you could also go Aka. You could go Seiken. You could go... who else were we talking about? I know we were throwing around a couple ERL names. You could maybe go a guy like Random or something like that too. But again, this Excel team definitely starts to get not so good. And I can't see Marcoon re-signing with this team. And I also don't really see a point of having Patrick and Mickey if you are going to go like ERLs or cheap in the... mid lane and jungle or anything like that. So I obviously I hate this the most, but this is the world where Excel doesn't have any money and can't spend. I do think that this is very, very unlikely though, because again, I don't think Excel would have spent the money on Mickey and did the buyout for Mickey if they were all of a sudden going to go like mega cheap. I think they're going to probably end up with a middle of the pack budget with middle of the pack spending. And I think that probably looks something like one of these other mid laners. VTO, I still just think is kind of a tough sell. So I don't know. I mean, I don't just want to say they're going to run back the same roster. So to me, I think this kind of seems like the most realistic, spicy, interesting enough roster. Maybe even just grabbing Selfmade as their one big pickup and keeping Finn. I think the change is most likely to be in the top lane or in the jungle. This guy said VTO's biggest desire right now is to finally have a real team that is LEC title EU Worlds contender, which I do believe. And I don't know. Selfmade top, Marcoon jungle, Nukeduck mid. Yeah, Selfmade is a top laner in the ERLs now, so who knows? I think it's going to be tough for Excel. I'm sure Excel wants to get a little aggressive with their medium to small budget, but I think it's going to be a little bit hard. I think their roster is solid. I think it's decent, but I think it's going to be tough to compete with these big players who want to go to Koi and Mad and G2 and Fnatic and all these names. Like, Excel's like the 5th, 6th, 7th best team, but also like the 5th, 6th, 7th most interesting team, most interesting brand. Again, it's very, very possible with the mid lane carousel going on that they happen into one of these other guys. But to me, it seems pretty unlikely. So I don't know. I think there are a lot of fun possibilities, and I think there is cool Excel rosters you could make, but I think a lot of this stuff is pretty unlikely to happen. I think it's very, very likely that we see almost the same Excel team next year or a very, very similar one. But I do like the idea of maybe a spicy top laner. I like the idea of maybe a spicy jungle. Somebody says maybe Magifelix too. Again, are you going to replace Nukeduck with Magifelix? Like, I don't really see that happening. I think if you're going to replace Nukeduck, it's going to be with like a star, like a guy who's going to come in and be a big difference maker, which is what I think this team needs. But like I said, there's only so many of those star mid laners out there. And Excel's going to be in the running for them. But are they going to be able to get their hands on one of them? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. But I do think that's a lot of the possibilities we ran through. I am pretty happy overall with this rebuild. And I do think, if they went out and did something like this, that the team would be overall better and probably more interesting and probably more fun to watch. But I think it's going to be a tough offseason for Excel, but I wish them luck. I hope they do some spicy stuff because we love seeing spicy offseason moves. But that is pretty much it for this video today, guys. Definitely drop a like if you did enjoy it. I would appreciate that so much. Definitely check out the first link in the description below for my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/I_am_germ. So you guys can come hang out with us, do rebuilds, talk the news, talk LEC, LCS, playoffs, rumors, all that stuff. It's a ton of fun. Drop us a follow, maybe a Prime if you have that available as well. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about Excel's offseason, any changes you'd like to see them make or you think they could make. Subscribe, stay up to date on all my latest content. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one. But until then. Peace.